Hello and welcome to Indus News, live from Islamabad. I'm Hamza Rifat and these are the headlines. In Afghanistan, the Taliban say their fighters have entered the capital of PANJSUR, the last province holding out against the group that swept to power last month. A spokesperson said opposition fighters have suffered numerous casualties as a top U.S. general warns of a civil war if the group fails to consolidate power. But the opposition fighters also claim they've captured hundreds of Taliban troops. Meanwhile, the Taliban have issued directives banning aerial firing in Kabul and other cities a day after the celebratory fire led to several casualties in Kabul. In Pakistan, 4 security personnel have been martyred and 20 people injured in a suicide bomb blast on a checkpost of paramilitary forces in Quetta. Prime Minister Imran Khan has condemned the attack, which is claimed by a terrorist group, Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. National Security Advisor Moeed Yusuf says India has been sponsoring TTP and other terrorists, and it must be held accountable for that. In India, thousands of farmers from Uttar Pradesh and neighboring states rallied in Muzaffarnagar against the controversial farm laws. The farmers' protest against the 3 contentious laws has completed over 9 months since they first arrived at Delhi borders. They have been demanding the repeal of the laws, which they say will leave them at the mercy of big corporates. The news in detail on the other side. Stay tuned to Indus News. Welcome back, and now the news in detail. In Afghanistan, the Taliban say their fighters have entered the capital of PANJSUR, the last province holding out against the group that swept to power last month. A spokesperson said opposition fighters have suffered numerous casualties as a top U.S. general warns of a civil war if the group fails to consolidate power. But opposition fighters claim they have captured hundreds of Taliban troops. Meanwhile, the Taliban have issued directives banning aerial firing in Kabul and other cities. The directive comes a day after a celebratory fire led to several casualties in Kabul following claims that the Taliban have seized control of PANJSUR. Now we're joined by Chaudhry Fawad Hussain, Federal Minister for Information. Thank you very much, sir, for your time. Now, my question is that why do you think the Indian media and the government is so concerned by the presence of the Pakistani Intelligence Agency's Director General in Afghanistan?
Well, even before that, my question is why they are so concerned about Afghanistan. I mean, India does not share even an inch of border with Afghanistan. I am totally perplexed by the kind of attention this issue is getting on Indian media. The problem is that India has invested a huge amount of money in the terrorism network that they were using against Pakistan, and now I think they are very, very unhappy and actually confused and actually fear that their investment is completely drowned, and Afghanistan and land of Afghanistan is no more available to them for plotting terrorism against Pakistan.
Right, now coming to the foreign policy aspect of it, beyond the Indian hawkish media, of course, President Joe Biden recently said that America will not be adopting a policing role in the region. But we've clearly seen that the Treasury Department has sanctioned many of Iranian intelligence operatives who apparently were trying to create discord in the U.S. Do you think that the American statements regarding policing or the veracity of these statements can be taken at face value?
Well, this is, something between you and Iran, and I would not like to comment on that.
Right.
But as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I think President Biden's decision to pull out American forces was right. There was no other option, and we believe that the American policy of political solution is the same. We also thought that only a political solution is possible. Only difference is we said this 10 years back, and President Biden and U.S. U.S. authorities are now acknowledging it. I wish if they would have, learned the advice of Pakistan about a decade back, things would be different.
Right, absolutely. And that makes absolute sense as far as the overall scenario is concerned. Now, sir, the world is also praising Pakistan's efforts for peace in Afghanistan. And now, in light of this, where do you think India would stand after the change of New Delhi's backed corrupt regime in the war-torn country?
Well, frankly, I'm totally unable to understand Prime Minister Modi's policies. He is primarily pursuing the policies of Hitler, and his whole doctrine is based on RSS doctrine is based on Nazi Germany. So the problem is the hate doctrine which Prime Minister Modi has actually expanded in India,
right.
And we see the Muslims and other minorities in India are suffering big time because of the policies of Prime Minister Modi. Unfortunately, he believes that he can carry on his agenda of terrorism by using the farmland like he did the previous 5-7 years. But inshallah, we have defeated the Indian agenda there. And instead of, kind of fighting in this region, India should reconcile its differences with regional countries. And there's a huge potential in this region where everyone can actually benefit.
Right, sir. Final two questions. What action do you suggest that the international community should take against New Delhi for destroying peace in the region? Because as you clearly suggested, the Nazi regime is not hell-bent on ensuring that peace can actually materialize.
Well, I think the international community must wake up to this, the situation that is now created by India in this region. So, and also especially in Kashmir, and you have seen how they refused to hand over the body of Sayyid GEELANI.
Absolutely, yes.
I think it's the worst kind of human rights violation from any government in the world. So I think international community should wake up. And even before international community, I would like to call up the Lok Sabha. The Assembly of India, the elected people of representative of the people of India, that they must, make Mr. Modi accountable. He wasted the taxpayers' money in India. He then came up with these policies of hate in India that actually divided India. And this is, I believe, something that people of India must make Prime Minister Modi accountable. And obviously, the world should also, look at what's going on.
Right. Now, coming to Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the Taliban spokesperson Sohail Shaheen said that the group would raise the voice of people in Indian occupied Kashmir. Should we take the Taliban statements on face value? And my final question is, when will demonization of Pakistan stop?
Well, I think people of Kashmir hardly need any foreign help in pursuing their war of freedom. So they are pursuing this war for 7 decades now, and we obviously the world, including Afghanistan, should stand with them in morally in their struggle. But the primary struggle is always led by people of Kashmir, and they will continue to be doing that. They will obviously have all the moral and ethical support with the people of Kashmir in this great war fight.
Chaudhry Fawad Hussain, Federal Minister for Information, thank you very much for speaking to me on Indus News. Now, in Pakistan, 4 security personnel have been martyred and 19 people injured in a suicide bomb blast in Quetta. Authorities said the suicide bomber targeted a paramilitary forces checkpost on Mastung Road.
Police said the suicide bomber had rammed his motorcycle into the vehicle of a law enforcement agency parked near the checkpost. They said the wounded have been transferred to a nearby hospital, with many of them critical. Prime Minister Imran Khan has condemned the attack, which is claimed by the outlawed terrorist group Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. In a tweet, Khan praised the security forces for their sacrifices and for thwarting foreign-backed terrorist design. National Security Advisor Moeed Yusuf says India has been sponsoring TTP and other terrorists and it must be held accountable for that.
Staying with Pakistan's Prime Minister, he has slammed India for filing an FIR against the family of deceased Hurriyat leader Sayyid Ali Gilani. In a tweet, Khan said snatching Gilani's body was just another shameful example of India's descent into fascism.
Khan said the Prime Minister Narendra Modi's BJP and RSS government is inspired by the Nazis. Meanwhile, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said it is shameful how India is trying to intimidate Gilani's grieving family. The Jammu and Kashmir police said Gilani's relatives wrapped his body in a Pakistani flag and raised anti-India slogans. Following Gilani's demise, his body was forcibly taken away by police and government officials. Gilani's son said they were not allowed to conduct the last rites of their father. Gilani, who spent 20 years of his life in prison, passed away on Wednesday after prolonged illness.
Now we are joined by Dr. Mujahid Gilani, grandson of Sayyid Ali Gilani. Thank you for your time. Indian police have filed an FIR against the family of deceased Hurriyat leader Sayyid Ali Gilani. I want to ask you this, is New Delhi still afraid of Gilani even after his death?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. You see, you need to understand that the Indian occupation works in a very subtle way. Indian occupation works in a way that needs to strengthen its occupation. And this is what India currently is doing, handing over the dead body of the greatest Hurriyat leader, Sayyid Ali Gilani, to the people of Kashmir would have created a havoc in the Indian parliament and the Indian authorities. And that is the most important reason that the Indian authorities never let the people even go near to the dead body. And the dead body was essentially buried in the dead of the night without the knowledge of even a single family member. And this is one of the clearest, I believe, examples where India once again has shown that a staunch and a stable voice against India and backing the United Nations resolution for the right of self-determination of Kashmiris is what India is always feared of.
Right. Now, Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has slammed India for its shameful act, and it's definitely shameful, and called Prime Minister Narendra Modi's BJP government Nazi-inspired. What is your take on this?
See, I believe that Pakistan needs to take it even more boldly. Sayyid Ali Gilani, given his whole life, his 92 years of life, for Pakistan primarily, for what we call as a Pakistan, we are Pakistanis and Pakistan is ours. This was a slogan all over his life, particularly in the past 10 to 11 years where he was kept under house arrest. An old man of 82 years old. I believe Pakistan needs to take it even more boldly. I understand that the Premier Imran Khan has definitely taken it up on Twitter, but Pakistan needs to take it diplomatically at the United Nations front, as well as other fronts, other forums where this issue, particularly this, that the last ritual of Sayyid Ali Gilani could not be performed in a proper way. This needs to be highlighted.
Right now, Sayyid Ali Gilani's sons say that the Indian authorities did not allow them to conduct the last rites of their father. How do you think the international community must perceive this as? Because this is outright denying decency of the burial to the deceased and is against basic human rights.
See, one of the most important things, again, we need to understand is that India is working on the same plan as it did with Ashraf Khan Sehrai Shaheed. Once Ashraf Khan Sehrai Shaheed was buried, an FIR was launched against his family as well. And at this point in time, we know and understand that the family was never involved in the burial of Sayyid Ali Gilani, one. And two, even if the family did resist against the Indian occupation and the forces that they wanted to bury Sayyid Ali Gilani during the daylight so that the family and the friends and the people of Jammu and Kashmir could actually join in the funeral. And that is what should have happened. But that unfortunately could not. Right at point this time, we understand and know that the Indian authorities have launched an FIR against the family as well. And the irony is the family has been blamed of actually not giving or handing over the body of Sayyid Ali Gilani or wrapping him in the Pakistani flag. Today, we must understand and know that The Indian occupation, the Indian oppression is at its extreme. India wants to break the Kashmiris not only militarily, but also psychologically. And this is what India is doing.
Dr. Mujahid Gilani, grandson of the late Sayyid Ali Gilani, thank you for talking to Indus News. Now, at least 13 police officers have been killed in an ISIS attack in Iraq's northern Kirkuk governorate. Security forces say the militants attacked federal police troops in the Al-Rashid district of the governorate. A senior Iraqi police officer said 3 others were wounded. However, there was no immediate claim of responsibility. Militant cells regularly target the Iraqi army and police in northern Iraq, but this was one of the deadliest attacks of this year. Staying with the Middle East, the Arab coalition says it has thwarted ballistic missile and drone attacks launched by Yemen's Houthi rebels towards Saudi Arabia. This comes a day after coalition air defenses intercepted 3 Houthi drones. In a statement, coalition spokesperson Brigadier General Turki al-Maliki said all missiles and drones were destroyed over Dammam, Najran and Jazan cities. However, he said the falling debris from the intercepted missiles injured 2 miners and damaged 14 houses in Dammam. Meanwhile, the Saudi Defense Ministry said it will take all deterrent measures to protect its lands and civilians under the international humanitarian law. However, the Houthi rebels claim to have attacked the Aramco facilities. More news from the Middle East. Iran's President Ibrahim Raisi says Tehran is ready to hold talks with world powers to revive its 2015 nuclear deal, but not under Western pressure. In an interview with state television, Raisi said previous attempts of applying pressure, along with negotiations, did not generate results. He said Tehran is seeking talks leading to a lifting of U.S. sanctions. He asserted Iran will not take a single step back from the interests of its people. The Iranian president also said events in Afghanistan showed the U.S. is a disruptive influence across the globe. He said the solution for Afghanistan is to establish a government with the vote and the will of the people. News from Africa now. The Ethiopian military claims it has killed more than 5,600 members of the Tigray rebel forces in the north of the country. The military said a further 2,300 rebels had been injured and 2,000 others were captured. A bloody conflict has been raging since November, but the statement from the military gave no timescale for the casualties. The war began last year after months of feuding between Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's government and Tigray People's Liberation Front, the TPLF. The president sent troops to Tigray to overthrow the regional government after accusing the rebels of being behind several attacks on military camps. Both sides have been accused of committing atrocities, including rape and mass civilian killings. More news on the other side. Stay tuned to Indus News. Welcome back. The number of global coronavirus infections has topped 220 million, with over 4.56 million deaths. Mexico has reported 647 deaths and more than 15,000 cases overnight. More in this report.
Vaccines and restrictions have so far proven to be the best tool to eliminate coronavirus. But both continue to face resistance from the masses. In the US, medical staff at a main hospital say they are struggling to cope with the surge in unvaccinated, critically ill COVID patients. Nurses say in the past they mostly treated elderly patients or those with pre-existing conditions, but recently they have been inundated with otherwise healthy patients in their 40s and 50s. Over in Southern America, Brazil has suspended the use of over 12 million doses of vaccine developed by China's Sinovac Biotech. Federal health regulator Anvisa said the doses were produced in an unauthorized plant. Meanwhile, in Argentina, hundreds protested the government's handling of the pandemic and laid rocks near the Casa Rosada to represent the more than 112,000 people who died from COVID-19 in the country.
We want this place to become a museum of memory, like the other museums that remind us of this country's tragedies. I want this to end because I'm sick and tired of this government.
As vaccine discrepancies grow, so does the criticism, latest by the former British Prime Minister Gordon Brown. He accused rich countries of committing a moral outrage by stockpiling doses, while poor countries are struggling to get supplies. Brown, who is a UN Special Envoy, said Western countries are hoarding nearly 300 million shots while only 70 million people in Africa have so far been vaccinated. Over in Paris, police made several arrests as thousands took to the streets against health pass for the 8th consecutive weekend. Led by far-right politician Florian Philippot, protesters chanted for President Emmanuel Macron to resign.
We must also act with wisdom. Therefore, really disinfect the hands. Respect the measures, but we shouldn't abuse it and lock people up because there is a virus. There are diseases much more serious and people die. They get infected in different ways. We must not react with fear. This is not normal.
Japan is set to extend a state of emergency in and around Tokyo until the last week of September. In Australia, New South Wales state reported 3 deaths overnight, while authorities said 175 people are in the intensive care unit. New Zealand logged 20 local cases, the same as the previous day, giving authorities more confidence that they're gaining a winning hand over the current outbreak of Delta variant.
Now for some domestic COVID-19 updates. Pakistan has reported 61 deaths from the virus over the past 24 hours. The Health Ministry says the fatalities toll has jumped to 26,175. It said the virus infected over 3,700 people overnight. The country's caseload has exceeded 1.17 million, while over 1 million people have recovered. Over 92,000 cases are active in the country, of which over 5,500 are critical. The positivity rate of infections has risen to 6.47%. Meanwhile, Minister for Planning Asad Umar has urged people to follow standard operating procedures and get themselves vaccinated. On the 6th of September, Pakistan, along with Jammu and Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan, will observe Defence Day with full enthusiasm. During the day, the nation will pay homage to martyrs who sacrificed their lives defending the country. Now we have with us, for more on this, we're joined by our correspondent Sumaira Khan. Sumaira, thank you for joining me on Indus News. Now, Sumaira, can you please share with us a list of events scheduled to celebrate Defence Day of Pakistan?
Yes, we have heard that the day of 6th September, Defence Day of Pakistan, will be the activities of the day will be kicked off with the 31 gun salute in the capital and 21 gun salutes in the provincial capitals. After that, there will be a ceremony in all across Pakistan. There will be the flower wreaths will be sent over to all the tombs of Shohadas, the martyrs, on behalf of Chief of Army Staff, Prime Minister and President of Pakistan. And there are some other activities being planned in the Twin Cities as well, and we are having this information from the military quarters and from the spokesperson of military that there will be a special ceremony that is going to be held at GHQ Rawalpindi to pay homage and to pay tribute to all the martyrs of Pakistan, in which the NOKs, the next of kin of all the martyrs, they are being invited over there. Foreign dignitaries, diplomats, top military, civil military officials, including Prime Minister of Pakistan and Chief of Army Staff, will be there. There will be addresses to the nation as well from the Chief of Army Staff and Prime Minister of Pakistan, and we are also expecting some other specifically designed activities to celebrate the day as Defense of Pakistan. So right now we are having these 2 to 3 major activities in not just in the Twin Cities here but across Pakistan, and there is always we are also having this news that the Chief of Army Staff and both heads of Pakistan, President and Prime Minister, they'll be sending special messages to the nation to celebrate the day with all the zeal and with the confidence that Pakistan is in safe hands. And we just received the text of those messages as well, but it is embargoed, and we are going to broadcast it to the media. So 6th September, the nation is all set to celebrate 6th September Day of Defense of Pakistan, and it will be always remembered as the Defense Day in the history of Pakistan.
Thank you, Sumaira Khan. Now, in India, thousands of farmers from Uttar Pradesh and neighboring states rallied in Muzaffarnagar against the controversial farm laws. The farmers' protest against the 3 contentious laws has completed over 9 months since they first arrived at New Delhi borders. They've been demanding the repeal of the laws which they say will leave them at the mercy of big corporations. The rally is the biggest in a months-long series of demonstrations. News from down under. In Australia, a surfer has died after being bitten by a shark off a surfing beach on the east coast. The Emerald Beach in the north of Coffs Harbour was closed after the incident. Medics said bystanders and other emergency services did their best to help the man. The surfer was believed to be in his late 20s and was bitten in the arm. Australia ranked only behind the United States in the number of unprovoked shark encounters with humans in 2019. Now in Egypt, at least 12 people have been killed and 30 others injured after a bus overturned on a highway linking capital Cairo with the Suez Canal city. State media said the bus overturned after hitting a concrete barrier. It said the bus was heading to Cairo from the Red Sea resort of Sharm el-Sheikh. Traffic accidents kill thousands of people every year in Egypt, which has a poor transportation safety record. In 2019, over 3,000 people had been killed in around 10,000 road accidents across the country. In Montenegro, police clashed with protesters rallying against the enthronement of a Serbian Orthodox Church cleric as the nation's religious leader. Police used tear gas against protesters who threw rocks and bottles in the city of Cetinje. The enthronement of the cleric has exposed deep divisions over ties with Serbia. Some, including Montenegro's president, see it as a symbol of Serb influence. Pro-Serb Prime Minister Vratko Krivokepec has branded the protests terrorist acts. Montenegro split with Serbia in 2006, but its church remains under the Serbian Orthodox Church. The U.S. Coast Guard says a private dive team will try to locate the source of a suspected oil spill spotted in the Gulf of Mexico. Earlier satellite images showed a brownish-black slick spreading in waters about 2 miles off Port Fortune in Louisiana. A Coast Guard spokesperson said the authorities will work on a recovery and source control plan later. The energy company, Talos, says it believes it is not responsible for the oil in the water. The Bay Marchant spill is one of the several reported environmental hazards in Louisiana and the Gulf following Hurricane Ida. Louisiana, an oil and gas hub, was hit by the powerful hurricane that wreaked havoc in the region this week. And staying with the United States and across the country's west this summer, helicopters buzzed low and herd thousands of wild horses into gated areas. The roundups are made necessary by the devastating effects of wildfire and drought. More in this report.
Climate change is endangering the iconic wild horses, livestock and other wildlife. The dire situation in U.S. western lands has led to an unprecedented dialogue between horse rights activists, the cattle industry, and the Bureau of Land Management. Horse defenders have long hated the helicopter-led roundups, called gathers, by the Bureau of Land Management. Wild horses are herded into corrals and then brought to long-term grazing facilities, mostly in the Midwest. A smaller number are also put up for adoption. But faced with dwindling water and plant resources, some rights activists have accepted the roundups as necessary evil when faced with climate change.
The greatest threat to our wild horses and burros and our public lands right now isn't the BLM. You know, it's not cattle ranching interests, it's not mining interests, it's not animal advocates, it's climate change. And that new reality is fast sort of settling in.
The activists are advocating a mix of roundups and fertility control measures to sustain the population of wild horses. The population of wild horses has grown from an estimated 30,000 in 2013 to nearly 80,000. The Coalition of Animal Rights, the Path Forward group, favor using contraception aggressively so that the population achieves a sustainable level. They hope as contraceptive measures ramp up and the number of wild horses gradually stabilizes, the roundups are eased out. According to land management authorities, horses' populations are so large that vaccines alone cannot bring the size down.
The challenge in the short term is that's not going to reduce populations. It allows us to work in places where there are stable populations at sustainable levels, and then we can use the fertility control to be able to support that herd at a sustainable level and avoid the need for more gathers.
However, the Path Forward's approach has been vehemently attacked by some activists. The American Wild Horse Campaign opposes roundups except in emergency situations and believes that horses should receive fertility control vaccinations in their natural habitat. The group's director dismisses the notion that horses should bear the burden of the West's hard time.
More news after the break. Stay tuned to Indus News. Welcome back. Italian stunt pilot Dario Costa has become the first to officially fly an aircraft within a tunnel in Turkey. More about this fascinating record in this report.
Professional race and stunt pilot Dario Costa of Italy has written a new chapter in aviation history, as he flew a racing plane through the narrow confines of two enclosed auto tunnels just outside Istanbul. Costa, who was flying a specially modified Zefco H 540 aircraft, was overjoyed at his achievement.
Very emotional, very emotional. It's just, you know, it's more than 1 year that we are working on this project, and then you get it done. Till it's not done, you don't know. You don't know what to expect. You don't know if it's gonna go good.
Costa took off within the first tunnel, maintaining an altitude of less than 1 meter with solid concrete on all sides. After emerging, he then entered and flew through the second tunnel at an average speed of 245 kilometers per hour. When the race plane shot out of the other side, the Italian pulled it into a celebratory loop before landing.
I never flown in a tunnel in my life. Nobody ever done it, so there was a big question mark in my head if everything would have been like we expected, or there would have been something to improvise, improvising. So it was a big relief, of course, but big happiness. That was the biggest emotion of the two.
From takeoff to exiting the second tunnel, the flight covered a distance of 2.26 kilometers. And in less than 44 seconds, Dario Costa had set a certified Guinness World Record plus 4 more.
Now in China, Mid-Autumn Festival Gala's organizers are striving to present the highest quality lights and sound effects for the audience. More in this report.
This year, China Media Group's Gala has adopted a panoramic stage with immersive effects. Whether it is a panoramic, medium shot or close-up shot, lively light designs will create romance among other styles of atmospheres for the shows with 360-degree multiple lighting. On the upper side of a city wall surrounding an ancient tree on the main stage lies a sound control area of the gala. Here organizers can see every corner of the stage. During every minute of the show recording, staffers must carefully polish the sound effects.
The stage is very large with many speakers at distance. There will be delay in sound transmission due to the far distance. So we have put some small speakers of point sound source at some inconspicuous position near the stage and not too far from it.
Meanwhile, behind the scenes, staffers endeavor to improve stage designs for the various performances. At the same time, performers are looking to tell a good story of reunion to show the traditional joyful atmosphere of the festival.
Time now for the weather report with Sarosh Sohail.
Thank you. Let's have a look at the weather forecast, and we're going to start with Abu Dhabi, where weather is expected to be extremely hot, with temperatures rising to 42 degrees centigrade. While in Amsterdam, partly cloudy weather is expected, with temperatures steady at 22 degrees centigrade. If we head to Ankara, there is a sunny weather with temperatures at around 28 degrees centigrade. Moving down under to Auckland, the temperature is chilly at 16 degrees centigrade with clear sunny sky. Now if you're traveling to Bangkok, there will be a layer of clouds covering the sky with temperatures around 29 degrees degrees centigrade. In Beijing, the temperatures are at 26 degrees centigrade, accompanied with rain in the forecast. While in Beirut, you will also experience sunny weather with temperatures at 31 degrees centigrade. Meanwhile, Bernalillas will experience temperatures at 21 degrees centigrade, accompanied with thin layer of clouds in the sky. Heading to Cairo, the sun will be out with temperatures at 34 degrees centigrade with clear sunny sky in the forecast. Down under in Canberra again, the temperatures are at 10 degrees centigrade with expected rain today. In Islamabad, you will see the temperatures around 35 degrees centigrade with clear sun in the sky. While in Jakarta, the temperatures are steady at 33 degrees centigrade with thunderstorm in the forecast. That's all for now. Back to you.
With the weather update, we come to the end of this bulletin. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.